Russia's top-tier helicopter gunship, the $16 million Ka-52 Alligator, is being knocked down from skies above Ukraine at a pace of better than an aircraft a day, Ukrainian military sources said on Tuesday, without saying exactly how it was done. Ukrainian Air Defense Force operators from June 16 to 19 brought down 5 Kamaz Ka-52 attack helicopters, the Air Force statement said. Ukraine's air defense units are responsible for protecting national airspace and operate systems ranging from fighter jets to ground-based anti-aircraft missile and gun batteries. The official Kiev statement published on the Air Force's Telegram channel confirmed the location of only one shootdown, on the Donetsk front at around 23 o'clock on the 19th of June. Russia-controlled media in mid-June credited Ka-52 gunships for the destruction of 3 German Leopard 2 tanks and 11 U.S.-made Bradley infantry fighting vehicles in a series of nighttime ambushes on June 10th in the southern Orikhiv sector. Official Ukrainian statements acknowledged some of the losses, but claimed that most of the hit vehicles would be recovered and repaired. The Kremlin-supported Ryadovka information platform on June 19th reported a 6th Ka-52, also operating in Ukraine, took a direct missile hit to its tail but was able to return to base. Other sources published video of a Ka-52 flying despite its entire tail having been blown off, but did not directly link the damaged aircraft with combat operations in Ukraine. The Kamaz Ka-52 Alligator has been billed by the Kremlin as the world's best helicopter gunship due to its counter-rotating rotors, smart targeting systems, thick armor, and powerful armament. A heavily advertised feature of the aircraft is the Viker attack missile, a weapon Moscow claims can destroy any tank at a 10 kilometers range, enabling Ka-52 gunners to pick off targets well outside the reach of most Ukrainian air defense weapons. Ukraine's 36th Marine Brigade published a colorful account of a Sunday shootdown, reportedly taking place after a Ka-52 pilot flew too close to Ukrainian lines, and a Marine gunner with call sign Lito hit it with a shoulder-launched, short-range Igla missile. The pilot of the Russian helicopter was moving at an altitude of less than 20 meters, and the distance to the Ukrainian positions was more than 4 kilometers. So Putin's Vulture felt almost invulnerable. The missile fired from the Igla manpads hit the tail projection of the helicopter. Later, Lito and his brothers watched a picturesque picture. The vaunted analog propellant Alligator, leaving behind a trail of greasy, thick smoke, began to sharply lose altitude and disappeared from sight in a few seconds. The after-action report published on the Brigade Telegram channel on June 18th said, Kiev Post could not confirm the account, but Ukraine's Air Force claimed a Ka-52 shot down on that day, and later confirmed the engagement took place in the Donetsk sector. Elements of 36th Brigade have been deployed to that area for months, military sources told Kiev Post. Following Kiev's early June launch of an offensive in the war's southern sector, Kremlin propagandists have played up Russia's Ka-52 fleet as a devastating and highly mobile reserve force Moscow's generals can deploy to any threatened area to demolish Ukrainian attacks. Kremlin-controlled media have depicted Ka-52 pilots as heroes defending Russia. A June 20th Izvestia news agency television report, forwarded by high-profile Russian propagandist Boris Rozhin, described one pilot as a man who loves children and likes to waggle his helicopter's wings at children on the ground. The armed forces of Ukraine have since Russia's late February 2022 invasion used a mix of Soviet-era vehicle-mounted anti-aircraft weapons and handheld anti-aircraft missiles donated by Kiev's Western allies to battle the Kremlin's powerful attack helicopter fleet. According to a June 20th situation estimate by Ukraine's Army General Staff, Ukrainian troops, using various weapons, had shot down 306 Russian helicopters since February 2022. By April 2023, Ukrainian officials were openly warning of falling stocks of handheld anti-aircraft missiles like the shoulder-fired Igla, and said Russian helicopter gunships could soon be operating above battlefields with near impunity. Stocks of the default NATO handheld anti-aircraft missile, the US-made Stinger, are reportedly at critically low levels following more than a year of deliveries to Ukraine and limited production in the US. The Latvian military, by late April, had emptied its entire stockpile and transferred all its Stingers to Ukraine. One stopgap measure was a Canadian decision in late May to hand over to Ukraine 43 AIM-9 missiles, a tested anti-aircraft weapon developed by the U.S. The Norway U.S.-manufactured NASAMS ground-based launch system can fire AIM-9 as well, and according to open sources, Ukraine currently operates 2 NASAMS systems, one donated by the U.S. and the other by Canada. The AIM-9 Sidewinder missile is widely used in NATO air forces. Its maximum range, per open sources, is above 30 kilometers, about 3 times the range of the KA-52's long-range anti-tank missile. The location of NASAMS systems known to be in Ukraine is a military secret. On June 19th, the Ukrainian Air Force published a video of a Ukrainian MiG-29 fighter in action in unspecified airspace, firing an air-to-air missile at an unidentified target. Some military analysts suggested the weapon was possibly an AIM-9 because some MiG-29S jets currently operated by the Ukrainian Air Force were donated by NATO members Poland and Slovakia, whose air forces modified the Soviet-era jets to launch NATO standard missiles like the AIM-9. The missile in the video is blurred out and made unidentifiable on the official Air Force Twitter post. In a December 2022 interview with The Economist, the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Valery Zaluzhny, noted that the Russians were not idiots. Despite their various missteps in this war, the Russians have demonstrated the ability to learn and adapt. One important element of Russian strategic adaptation in the past 6 months has been Russian President Vladimir Putin's embrace of a revised strategy that draws out the length of the conflict. This evolved Russian strategy has embraced the idea that while assistance might be flowing now, Western populations and politicians will eventually tire of the war. Putin has also stated publicly that he expects a long war in Ukraine, calling his invasion a long process. This approach is supported by a revised Russian military strategy since January 2023, which might be called Operation Don't Lose in 2023. This operation has many components, but broadly, it has been implemented in 2 phases. The first phase was preemptive operations. These are actions which either prepared the Russians for the Ukrainian offensives or aimed to degrade Ukrainian combat power before their mid-2023 offensives. This preemptive phase began in September 2022 with the partial mobilization activity undertaken by the Russians. Newly mobilized personnel soon found themselves reinforcing Russian units across southern Ukraine. They were able to stabilize their defensive lines and fill out the severely depleted Russian combat units. The simple reason Putin likes his incompetent General Gerasimov. Another element of this preemptive phase was the Russian offensive of 2023, begun in January after General Valery Gerasimov assumed command of the Russian operations in Ukraine. Attacking on multiple fronts, this offensive gained almost no new territory and resulted in the loss of approximately 100,000 Russian soldiers killed and wounded. However, it did buy the Russians time. This time was critical for a final element of the Russians' preparations for the Ukrainian offensives. While the Russians fought their 2023 offensive, massive obstacle belts were constructed across southern and eastern Ukraine, consisting of anti-tank ditches, mines, wire, strong points, as well as hardened and camouflaged headquarters. The Russians have prepared an extensive defense zone, dozens of kilometers deep, through which the Ukrainians must fight in the coming weeks. The second phase of Russia's plan to not lose this year has been in action since the beginning of the Ukrainian offensives. A key element of this is the missile and drone attacks against Ukrainian cities and infrastructure. This has drawn large amounts of air defense capacity away from the battlefield, opening up Ukrainian ground forces to attack from the Russian Air Force and attack helicopters. There has also been a stepped-up strategic influence campaign designed to project a failing Ukrainian offensive. Regardless of Ukraine's gains, Russia will be messaging to Europeans, Americans, Australians, and others that the Ukrainians are failing and not worthy of further assistance. Finally, since early June, the Russians have engaged in the hard business of close combat and longer-range strike to degrade Ukrainian combat formations and hinder their progress. They have been learning and adapting. They are slowly but unevenly improving their tactical performance and using an expanding number of drones for reconnaissance and attacking Ukrainian units. Recently, they even used a remotely controlled tank full of explosives to attack Ukrainian positions. Regardless of how professional and well-led the Ukrainians are, it is inevitable they will sustain casualties in the offensive. But taking casualties is not the same as losing. Putin, having failed in his initial 2022 gambit to quickly change the government in Kiev, is now implementing an even more brutal and cynical strategy. He cares nothing for the greater number of Ukrainians and soldiers who will perish or suffer from his plan for a longer war. There are strategic and humanitarian imperatives for the West to defeat Putin's latest theory of victory. Achieving this will require the kind of decisive and courageous political leadership we have seen from Baltic and Eastern European governments, the United States, as well as Jens Stoltenberg at NATO. To this end, the upcoming NATO summit in Vilnius will be an important international meeting. Not only will it serve to confirm NATO's strategy for supporting Ukraine, but it will also allow for a multitude of national leaders to hear firsthand why their ongoing support and strategic patience is vital for this year and beyond. The other way to ensure Russia fails in its don't lose strategy is rapid and continuous military assistance. Historical experience from the 20th century indicates that operations of the magnitude now being conducted by Ukraine take weeks to generate momentum. The scale of fighting now underway in Ukraine is beyond the experience or even imagination of most of our citizens. Casualties will be heavy, the consumption of ammunition massive, and loss of equipment will be ongoing. But the Ukrainians, as they have throughout this war, trudge on. Their army is grimly working its way through Russian defenses and defending the skies from a Russian missile and drone onslaught. The West should consider sending Ukraine everything needed to defeat the Russians as quickly as possible.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. He's doing the job every day.